I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where my marriage was crumbling due to something as cliched as infidelity, but life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect it. I met Kara when we were in college, and she was everything I could have wanted: vibrant, ambitious, and someone who pushed me to succeed. Over the years, we built a life together, or so I believed. I started my own consulting firm, and she pursued a career in marketing before deciding to shift her focus to fitness. At first, I supported her new passion wholeheartedly. When she began training with a personal coach at a local gym, I even offered to cover the costs, believing it was an investment in her well-being. I was working long hours, but I assumed she appreciated my efforts. Never did it cross my mind that she might be looking elsewhere for more than just a fitness regimen. Yet here I am, standing in the aftermath of her betrayal, replaying every lie she told me when she came home late so frequently. The irony is that she blamed me for being absent, as if my hard work was the problem. I remember the day it all came crashing down. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I'd gone to the gym to surprise Kara with lunch. I wanted to show her I cared, that even though I was busy, I could make time for her. I spotted her near the free weights, standing too close to her personal trainer. The look they exchanged made my stomach twist. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling, but when I approached them, their startled expressions told me I'd just barged in on something private. She was stammering through an introduction, and he seemed uncomfortable. I left without making a scene, determined to believe it was just paranoia on my part. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Later that night, I checked her phone while she was in the shower, an act I still feel guilty about. The messages I found confirmed my worst fears: explicit exchanges, pictures in that encounter, and an undeniable emotional bond. My heart sank as I realized she had crossed a line that neither of us could ever come back from. That was the moment everything shifted. My trust in her, once unwavering, dissolved in an instant. I confronted her that same night. She tried to twist it around, accusing me of neglecting her needs because I was too consumed by my job. I recall staring at her in disbelief, wondering how she could justify her betrayal by blaming me. It stung, not just because she cheated, but because she pinned the fault on the very work that paid our mortgage and funded her fitness pursuits. Our argument escalated quickly, filled with anger and tears on her part, and a furious silence on mine. I had nothing left to say. She admitted she'd been seeing him for a few months. They hadn't intended to hurt me, she claimed, but they'd felt drawn to each other in ways she couldn't describe. Every word she spoke cut deeper, a reminder of all the times she'd lied to my face. I remember leaving the house that night, driving aimlessly just to calm myself. The car radio was off, and the silence seemed suffocating. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, heartbreak, and a strange sense of relief that at least I knew the truth. I pulled over, stared at the steering wheel, and realized I was done being the fool. I spent the next few days sleeping in the guest room. The atmosphere in our house was unbearably tense. She tried to talk to me, offering excuses and half-baked apologies, but I refused to engage. Part of me wanted to lash out, but I knew it wouldn't help. I knew I needed to plan my moves carefully. My pride was wounded, yet I felt a strange determination to keep my emotions in check. It was almost businesslike, the way I weighed my options. She could have the house, the car, everything if she wanted, but I refused to let her walk away without consequences. The final straw was when she told me we could try counseling. She said it as though her affair was a minor slip, something we could patch up with a few sessions. My blood boiled, but I remained calm. I told her I needed space and left for a hotel, determined not to let her break me down further. In that hotel room, staring at a stained carpet, I mapped out the next steps. I listed all the documents I needed, all the legal advice I would seek. She had her trainer. I had my determination. First, I reached out to a divorce lawyer who had been recommended by an old colleague. We scheduled an appointment, and I laid out every incriminating detail. I showed him screenshots of their messages, pictures of them together, and receipts for her gym sessions that I had been financing. He didn't sugarcoat anything. According to him, in our state, infidelity alone wouldn't necessarily grant me a decisive advantage, but the evidence could help during negotiations, especially if I presented it at the right time. I listened to every word carefully, making mental notes about what steps to take. Next, I visited my bank. I wanted to separate our finances as discreetly as possible. I wasn't planning to leave her with nothing, but I refused to let her walk away with more than she deserved. The banker advised me on how to open new accounts and manage any joint assets until the divorce was finalized. Finally, I contacted a friend who worked in real estate. He promised to keep an eye out if I needed a new place. Every action I took felt like a piece of justice. I was no longer the naive husband, and that realization fueled my resolve. Confronting Kara again felt surreal. When I returned home to gather some clothes, she was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV that wasn't even on. She looked worn, her eyes red from crying. She asked me how we'd gone from happy newlyweds to silent strangers. I didn't have an answer for her. There was no point explaining the pain I felt. She already knew. Instead, I told her I'd started the divorce process immediately. Her face went pale and she tried to protest, but I cut her off. I reminded her that she'd made her choices. She argued it was just a mistake, that she'd gotten carried away, but I told her I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I had run out of patience. Watching her crumble didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would, but it did confirm that I was doing what was right for me. I wouldn't let her manipulate me into staying. I packed a suitcase and left without another word. As I walked out the door, she begged me to stay, saying she would end it with the trainer. But that was too little, too late. My mind was completely set. I relocated to a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to clear my head and focus on the future. I buried myself in work during the day, and in the evenings, I tackled the endless divorce paperwork. Friends called, offering condolences and support, but I rarely opened up. I felt embarrassed that my marriage had fallen apart so publicly. Rumors spread quickly, and soon enough, I became the topic of workplace whispers and neighborhood gossip. People sympathized, but I didn't want their pity. I wanted resolution. My lawyer and I had started crafting a settlement strategy. Since Kara was employed and had initiated the affair, we hoped to finalize terms that recognized my financial contributions. There were moments when I felt a pang of nostalgia, memories of our wedding, our vacations, our life. But whenever that happened, I forced myself to recall the text messages and the expression on Kara's face when she got caught. Anger replaced the sadness, fueling my determination. I wasn't going to be the man who folded under betrayal. I'd lost faith in our marriage, but I'd found a new sense of self-worth in the process. A few weeks into our separation, I ran into the trainer at a local grocery store. I'd only seen him once before, but his face was seared into my memory. He recognized me too. The second our eyes met, he looked away as though trying to avoid a confrontation. For a split second, I felt a strong urge to grab him by the collar and demand answers, but I held back, reminding myself that my anger was better channeled through legal means. I walked past him without a word, though my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Later that night, I got a text from Kara saying she'd heard about our encounter and wanted me to stay civil. The nerve of her, I thought. She was the one who destroyed our marriage, yet she had the gall to instruct me on how to behave. That text only served to rekindle my fury. I decided to block her number and communicate exclusively through my lawyer unless it involved something urgent. If she wanted civility, she should have considered that before betraying me. Keeping my composure felt like my final act of control in a world turned upside down. Months passed, and the divorce proceedings dragged on. Kara's lawyer tried to paint me as an inattentive spouse who had prioritized work over our relationship. Meanwhile, my lawyer countered with evidence of her affair and the financial support I'd provided. Neither side was backing down, so we found ourselves in mediation, haggling over every last detail: the house, the savings accounts, even furniture. Kara looked miserable throughout the process, but I refused to allow her sorrow to influence me. She had made a choice, and now she was dealing with the fallout. Despite my anger, I wasn't out to ruin her life. I just wanted what was fair. But fairness, it seemed, was subjective. She argued she deserved alimony because she had taken a break from her career for our marriage. I refused to pay a cent more than necessary. Eventually, we reached a tentative agreement. I'd keep a larger share of the savings, and she'd keep the house. She was free to live there or sell it if she wanted, but I wouldn't be tied to it. As I signed the preliminary documents, I felt a strange sense of closure creeping in. I was finally untangling myself from her. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt an unexpected wave of calm wash over me. It happened in a sterile courthouse with paperwork and obligatory handshakes. Kara looked as if she wanted to say something, but I avoided eye contact and focused on the judge's final words. When it was done, I walked out without glancing back. That evening, I packed away the last remnants of our shared life: wedding photos, old anniversary cards, trinkets from trips we'd taken. I couldn't bring myself to toss them out yet, but I couldn't keep them around either, so I stuffed everything into a storage box and slid it under my bed. Friends wanted to take me out to celebrate. I wasn't in a festive mood, but I agreed, hoping that being around people would help. The bar was dimly lit, and the music was a dull throb in the background. My buddies raised their glasses and cheered to my new beginning. I forced a smile and took a sip, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. I realized then that freedom can feel lonely. Yet, beneath that loneliness lay something else: the sweet taste of finally standing up for myself fully. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild. I refocused on my business, putting in the same energy that had once annoyed Kara. Only now, that energy had a clearer purpose. I took on new clients, expanded my network, and found renewed motivation in every project. My personal life remained quiet. I wasn't ready to date again, and truth be told, I enjoyed the solitude. No more constant arguments, no more suspicion. My phone was quiet except for work calls and the occasional message from friends. On weekends, I visited my parents or went for long drives to clear my mind. I discovered parts of myself I'd neglected during the marriage. I signed up for online courses to sharpen my skills and started hitting the gym, ironically. The first time I stepped onto a treadmill, I felt a hint of bitterness, but I pushed through. This wasn't about Kara anymore. It was about me taking care of myself. The progress was gradual, and there were days I still felt hurt or angry, but each morning I woke up a little stronger. The sense of betrayal lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I refused to let her define me. My first act of real revenge came unexpectedly. I received an email from a prospective client who happened to be the head of a new gym franchise in our area. They were looking for a consultant to streamline their expansion plans. When I researched the company, I discovered that Kara's trainer had recently started working there. The opportunity was too perfect to pass up. During negotiations, I made sure my role would include evaluating their staff's performance and handling internal issues. Once I secured the contract, I approached it with utmost professionalism. I never mentioned Kara or the trainer initially, focusing instead on delivering results. Over several weeks, I identified inefficiencies in the gym's operations and proposed solutions that impressed the executives. I gained their trust, which meant they listened closely to my recommendations regarding staffing. When I finally met with the manager and was asked about the trainer's performance, I presented factual, objective observations. He wasn't as skilled or as committed as the job demanded. I highlighted customer complaints and documented his lateness. It wasn't personal on paper, but my motive was clear. Soon after, the trainer was let go. I felt a sense of justified triumph and relief. Kara found out soon enough. She texted me from a new number, accusing me of ruining the trainer's career. She called me petty, vengeful, and heartless. I responded with a single sentence: actions have consequences. Then I blocked her again. I wasn't proud of stooping to her level, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction it brought. This wasn't about forgiveness or redemption. It was about taking back the power she had stolen from me. Some might say I went too far. Others would argue I was simply leveling the playing field. Either way, I didn't lose sleep over it. If anything, it gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt since discovering her affair. Around the same time, I wrapped up the project with the gym franchise on a high note. The executives praised my work, and my reputation as a consultant grew. I secured more clients, and my business thrived. In that sense, my personal vendetta aligned with my professional goals. Every milestone felt like another nail in the coffin of my old life. I was moving forward unapologetically, and for the first time in a long while, I felt content with the direction my life had taken. One late evening, nearly a year after the divorce, I stumbled upon an old photo of Kara and me. We were laughing, holding each other close in a moment that felt genuine. For a brief second, I was overwhelmed by memories, both good and bad. Everything that happened still hurt, but I also felt an odd sense of gratitude for how much I'd grown. Betrayal has a way of teaching brutal lessons. I had learned to be more cautious, less trusting, but I had also discovered my resilience. The phone vibrated, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a friend inviting me to a small get-together. I hesitated, then accepted. I realized I was no longer defined by what Kara had done. That chapter was over, and while the scars remained, they no longer bled. I'd taken my revenge, and I'd found closure on my own terms. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and headed out with a lighter heart than I'd had in years. As I locked my apartment door, I took one last look at that photo. Then I slipped it into a drawer, deciding that some memories, even painful ones, were worth keeping. I left quietly afterward. Life didn't magically become perfect after all was said and done. Sometimes I'd wake up to a twinge of regret or an echo of anger, but it became smaller with each passing day. I'd gone through hell, but I'd emerged with a stronger sense of who I was. I hadn't forgiven Kara, and I never planned to. In my mind, forgiveness was for those who deserved it, and she had proven otherwise. The scars she left behind served as a reminder never to let anyone take advantage of my loyalty again. Still, I learned not to let that bitterness consume me. My happiness mattered more than holding on to rage. I could move forward without forgiving her. That alone felt like victory. Whenever people asked how I was doing, I'd say I was fine, and I meant it. I surrounded myself with genuine friends and focused on my aspirations. The next time I got into a relationship, I'd tread more carefully. Yet, I wouldn't let my past dictate my future. I'd found my self-respect, and no betrayal could ever take it away. This was the new me, unbroken, unapologetic, and ready for whatever came next. And for the first time, I lived.